This session, we are going to be talking about insurance itself. And the primary role of most insurance, auto insurance, home insurance, health insurance, is to maintain an existing level of wealth. So when we talk about insurance, we're really talking about managing risk itself. And as we talk in Chapter 11, we're going to talk about auto and homeowners insurance itself. Managing risk is really looking at the exposure that we have to events or perils that can cause financial loss. And risk management is decisions about whether and how to protect ourselves against risk itself. And so we want to avoid risk, and if we don't own any assets, for the most part, we don't need that much insurance. But for most of us, we really want to reduce the risk that we have, and this begins by accepting that there is risk in life. Risk, of course, is absorbing that risk is feasible when the likelihood of financial loss is low. But buying insurance is something that allows us to manage risk. It's different from other purchases in that insurance is one of those things that there is no immediate benefit. But again, we don't have control over adverse events in our life. So we insure against risk by in essence being willing to pay a premium, which is the cost of obtaining insurance itself. Now, there's many types of insurance that's available. There's auto, as I said, homeowners. You can insure almost against anything out there. And just to let you know, insurance companies, there are some insurance companies that are willing to step forward, and they act as underwriters, and an underwriters from an insurance perspective is they're the ones who are hired to calculate the cost of specific insurance policies, decide what policies that they want to offer, and really what the premiums that they're going to charge for those policies themselves. Of course, there's group insurance company policies that are for employers, where employers are allowed to pool their employees together to obtain particular discounts. You see this especially in the area of health insurance. Insurance agents out there, they have a role to play, that they will, in essence, recommend policies to potential customers of what's out there. There are some captive insurance agents out there who only work for one particular insurance company, and in essence, they're only going to be offering you what that one insurance company. And then rather than captives, there's independent insurance agents, which may represent many different kinds of companies that are out there. So let me just speak briefly, and I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on some of these things because the textbook goes into quite a bit of detail. But on auto insurance itself, auto insurance is just basically something that insurance that protects you from financial loss for damage or liability resulting from automobile accidents. Auto insurance has increased in recent years. One of the reasons for the increase is just because of the proliferation of lawsuits out there. And there's just more personal injury attorneys, which means there's more lawsuits and there's more likelihood of either adverse judgments or settlements to keep it from going to court itself. There's different kinds of coverage, and I won't go into all the details, but there's coverage for liability coverage. There's coverage for medical payments coverage. There is coverage for uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. There's comp and collision and comprehensive coverage. There's all sorts of different factors that come in with respect to deductibles, and the cost of auto insurance is affected by your own driving record. It is affected by where you live and what the likelihood is of getting in an accident, just statistics wise. It's going to be based upon your car itself, the value of the car, maybe even the repair record of the car. Your age is going to come in, your mileage, your driving record, your driver training, even your school performance can have an impact on your driving record, because insurance companies have a tendency to see a correlation between the better the grades the little more of a responsible driver you have a tendency to be. So whenever you're looking at costs, again, it's important to be willing to shop around to look for the best deals. There's also homeowners insurance out there, and I'm going to just briefly mention homeowners insurance. It basically provides coverage in the event of property damage, theft, or even personal liability relating to your home. If somebody slips in your driveway and falls, it's especially with all these personal injury lawsuits out there or attorneys out there, there's a likelihood they may try to sue you for that. So it's homeowners insurance can help to protect you from those kinds of things. Obviously, when you talk about property damage and covering property damage, there's different kinds of policies out there. There's replacement costs. Some of it is just fair value policies. There's riders for flood and fire and all sorts of different kinds of things that you can look at in homeowners insurance. Sometimes homeowners insurance, depending upon your policy and what you have put on as additional riders, you may have additional living expenses covered. For example, if you have where you're unable to live in the home for a period of time, or a loss of use provisions. Again, it's important to understand the component pieces that you find in homeowners insurance. There's also renter's insurance for those of you who do not own a home. And renter's insurance is basically an insurance policy that covers your possessions within a house or condo or an apartment that you are renting. And there are specific provisions with respect to just maximum caps, protecting and replacing your personal assets. It can also cover liability from damages to a person on your property. And so it's just important to understand the different kinds of insurance out there. And how does this factor in? Again, is understanding that when economic conditions are weaker, then they tend to people to have a tendency to reduce insurance that they have. And again, you always want to look at your total coverage that you have to make sure that you don't put yourself in any sort of adverse position that if you were to experience a loss. Obviously, when you're pulling together personal financial plans, that you want to ask the questions, do I have adequate insurance to protect what I am building? And how much insurance do I want to have into the future? So as we continue talking about insurance, let's go to health and disability insurance. And just briefly, health insurance is that which is offered by private insurance companies or the government that covers healthcare expenses incurred by policy holders for necessary medical care. And this is a critical component of financial planning. And for those of you who may be students and are still covered under your parents' insurance policies right now, health insurance policies, this is something that you're going to have to be thinking about for the future itself. And there's a lot of component pieces to think about on health insurance. Of course, the cost of health insurance. Premiums have just skyrocketed over the past 5+ years. And so this becomes a very significant component of your personal budget itself. Currently, about 1 in 5 workers is uninsured, even though under Obamacare, they've tried to take care of that. The numbers are still rather high. Your health insurance decision, that you should come at it with a mindset that's not whether I obtain it or not, but how do I find the maximum coverage for what I can afford and which health plan. And there are many, many options out there that are available. Unfortunately, with what's happened recently, those options have been less and less depending upon where you live. But most common kind of options are fee-for-service plans or managed care plans out there. And a fee-for-service plan is where you just have health insurance that reimburses you for part or all of the expenses that you incur from approved healthcare providers. And usually individuals are free to seek care from a primary care physician or a specialist as long as they're covered under that health plan. A managed health care plan is a health insurance policy under which individuals receive services from specific doctors or hospitals that are part of the plan. The most common out there kind of health insurance are the fee-for-service plans or managed care plans, especially in our area of Montana. There are what's called HMOs, health maintenance organizations, which is a specific kind of health insurance that covers health care services approved by doctors. A primary care physician provides general health services and refers patients to a specialist as necessary within the HMO network. There's also preferred PPOs, preferred provider organizations, which is a health insurance plan that allows individuals to select a healthcare provider and covers most of the fees for services if there is a referral from the doctor. And the referral from the doctor is usually not required to visit a specialist. There are premiums out there, of course, that you have to pay. Premiums are higher for family coverage. For those who are self-employed or unemployed, or those who employer doesn't offer health care, you may purchase private coverage insurance, and some of that is now can be covered under Obamacare. When you look at the difference between various plans, there's all sorts of trade-offs. Of course, cost is one of the trade-offs that you have to look at between the flexibility of selecting your own physician and the premiums you're going to pay. HMOs and PPOs can sometimes will provide you with comparative information. So when you really look at this, you see the kind of plans that you have. Indemnity plans have higher premiums, but there's a greater amount of flexibility and sometimes even a greater amount of coverage with respect to specialists. HMOs, managed care plans, the premiums are relatively low, but you're also then locked to only be within the HMO network itself. PPOs, that usually they're low, but they're higher than HMOs, and usually there's greater amount of physicians to choose from in PPOs than there are in HMOs. So depending upon what your health experience is and some of your pre-existing conditions, sometimes PPOs are better than HMOs. There's also a kind of insurance out there that is really kind of a health insurance called long-term care insurance. And this is insurance that covers expenses associated with long-term health conditions that cause individuals to need help with everyday tasks. This is provided by private insurance companies. It can cover care in a nursing home, assisted living facilities, or at home itself. The premiums for long-term care insurance usually are quite expensive, and so a lot of times people don't carry that or they don't look at that until they get a little bit older. There's also a kind of insurance called disability insurance, and disability income insurance is insurance that provides some income to policy holders in the event that they become disabled. And the definition of disability is most liberal when you have your own occupation definitions, but it's most restrictive in any occupation definitions. So that's just to be aware that that is out there, so that quite often companies that you work for will offer some level of disability insurance, and then if you become disabled for a longer period of time, then quite often Social Security may kick in under some fairly significant restrictions for that. Let's talk about, in Chapter 13, about life insurance itself. And just kind of a background on life insurance. Life insurance is insurance that provides a payment to a specified beneficiary when you die, or the policyholder dies. And the role of life insurance can have a couple of different roles associated. And one of them is just to maintain financial support for dependents. So if you still have children at home, or you have an adult child for some reason that needs to have medical attention or some other kind of care, life insurance can help to provide for that. It also is a way of passing along an estate or establishing an estate to be able to pass along to heirs. The psychology behind life insurance is quite often people don't want to think about life insurance because they want to say, well, if you start thinking about life insurance, that's kind of morbid. And so they say, I want to think about happier things in life. But life insurance shouldn't be approached that way. Also, the other thing with respect to life insurance is, sometimes people really have a hard time buying life insurance or thinking about life insurance because they don't see the benefit of that, nor do they necessarily think that they're going to need it at any time in the near term future, so they just kind of push it off and they just really don't want to address it. But life insurance, again, is another one of those items that needs to be thought through and thought through as to whether it's going to be an item that's going to be built into a financial budget itself. Life insurance companies out there are designed to really help to steer you towards the type and amount of insurance that you need. Obviously, by the time you're talking to a life insurance company, you're thinking seriously about getting life insurance. And whenever you apply for life insurance, understand that there's going to be medical questions and there's going to be lifestyle questions, because all of those things are factored in actuarially into determining what the premiums really are going to be. Let's talk about a couple of different kinds of life insurance out there. Some of these terms you may have heard before, but may not know specifically what they're referring to. The first kind of life insurance is term insurance. It is a life insurance that is provided over a specified time period, and this doesn't build a cash value to it. In other words, it's not something that you can cash in later and get some of your money back. The premiums on term insurance may be paid monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, or annually. And how the premiums are determined is obviously the longer the term, the higher the premium. The older the policyholder, the higher the premium, because theoretically you're going to die sooner rather than later. The greater amount of insurance, obviously, the higher the premium. Premiums are higher for males than females because males have a tendency to die earlier. Premiums are higher for smokers and for other medical problems. So, I mean, those are all things that go into just the factors for what you're going to be paying for the premiums on term insurance itself. There's also something out there called decreasing term insurance, which is a form of term insurance in which the benefits will be paid to the beneficiary, but they're reduced over time, and the premium remains constant. There's also mortgage life insurance, which will, in the event that you die, it'll actually pay off your mortgage, and this is obviously very helpful for especially taking care of a widower or widower if the primary breadwinner were to pass away. There's a group term insurance, which is again another kind of term insurance with generally is typical, it's lower premiums available to people within a defined group, and this is what you primarily see that is made available to employee groups as certain companies. There's also a kind of insurance outside of term insurance called whole life insurance. This is kind of a permanent insurance. This is life insurance that continues to provide insurance as long as premiums are paid. It not only provides benefits to the beneficiary, but also has a cash value associated with this. The premiums on whole life can vary substantially, but it really is influenced by all those same factors that we just talked through for term insurance. And there are different kinds of whole life insurance. There's a limited payment policy, which allows you to pay premiums over a specified period, but remain insured for life. In comparison to term insurance, whole life has higher premiums, and some of that is because it is actually accumulating a value to the policy itself. So it's a way of accumulating savings. Whole life premiums will remain constant throughout a person's life. And so, again, it's depending upon what you are looking for specifically in your insurance. If you're looking at it as an investment vehicle, as a savings vehicle, then whole life is a way of doing both providing for insurance and also building some savings. There's universal life insurance is another insurance out there. This is a life insurance that provides insurance over a specified term, accumulates savings for the policy holder over this time. And a form of universal life is variable life, is again, it's the insurance over a specified time. But it allows policyholders to invest residual funds after the term portion is paid in all sorts of different kinds of investments. And what kind of insurance is right for you or best for you? That is where you can sit down and have an insurance agent actually kind of lay everything out for you, because all of these insurances have pros and cons. They all have variations with respect to what the premiums are. Depending upon where you are in your stage of life, you may have different needs that may change over time. But you may want to zero in specifically on a particular kind of insurance. So obviously, when you talk about insurance, not just life insurance, but all of these insurance components, they become an important part of your financial plan, because you need to ask the questions: what kind of insurance is most appropriate for me? How much insurance do I need? How much can I afford? How much do I need to consider layering into the future? Until next time.